today we have ethics and behaviours, analysis and problem solving, and client relationships. We have a magnificent team of speakers today, really top leaders in their field. We have Kate Spalding, who is head of public sector for Northern Europe in Atos. She's also a board member of the Management Consultancies Association. That's the employer's body for consulting organisations. On analysis and problem solving, we have Stephen Aldridge. He's the managing director of Numeritus Limited. They are big into numerical kind of analyses. I'm sure he'll tell you more about that when he's speaking. And finally, we have Roberta Carter, who, as well as being a deal value creation partner, which I think is basically about mergers and acquisitions. She's also the head of people for PwC UK Consulting, which is why she's just the right person to talk to us about ethics and behaviours in consulting.
Excellent. I'll kick off then. Great to see you all on the call, and thank you so much for coming. Really thank you to Simon and BCS for inviting me, and it's great to be sharing the panel with Roberta and Stephen, as I know to be real experts in their field. Simon asked me to speak about client relationships, and I work for Atos, the consulting unit of Atos. One of our straplines is being passionate about our clients, passionate about them, their business, their environment, and everything they're doing. And it's really, really important to us to create good client relationships at all levels. And as a new and inspiring consultant, this is something that you should be taking to heart at all times. It doesn't just apply to consultancy, it applies to all types of jobs. But I think in consultancy is absolutely crucial for you to be on the top of your game with this kind of thing. I've been really lucky to work with some fantastic clients through my career, and they've taught me an awful lot, and I think that goes something for the sort of partnership ethic that you should have with your clients. So why is this important? And I started talking about this a little bit. Consultancy is a people business. What we do is we sell people to people. Obviously, we do a lot more digital stuff and things like that as well these days, but it is all about the people. So building those strong relationships is a fundamental. There's also a thing around business empathy. If you don't understand your client and their particular situation around their market and their business, you will not have that level of understanding of their business, where they are, and who they are as a person, and why they might be reacting in a particular way. So it's really important to understand that business context as well and show that you understand it. Very important. Consultancy is all about sales. People buy from people that they like. They don't have to like you per se, but they have to absolutely respect you and like working with you. It's really important that you create that respect, and the more you do that, the more you will be able to sell as a consultant. And coming back to your particular business, creating long-lasting business relationships with organisations that you want to do business with, and for follow-on repeat business, and increase that customer loyalty. What most people say when you ask them for their customer satisfaction is that they liked working with the people. And so that's why it's really, really important. And lastly, and by no means least, you have to create your own network and brand. As a consultant, you need to be creating your own impact in the marketplace and understanding, be known for who you are, and have a network of people that you can call and talk to and discuss the issues of the day, or ask for an introduction to, or share information with. So for all those reasons, it's really, really important. But we all know situations where things have gone wrong. And it's people who are the hard stuff. And I think that cartoon probably connects with all of us at some point. And I'd just like to hear in the chat, comments on the sorts of frustrations that you have, if you want to put some ideas in there about where things aren't going well, when things are not working the way you want it to be, and how frustrating it is. So in any kind of thing. But what I find is here, while I'll just talk on while I'm letting you put some things in the chat. Generally speaking, if you just focus on the task or the deliverable in hand, this kind of thing will happen. Decisions can be taken over your head, the scope of what you're doing or the direction is changed. You can find that the best point in the world is just overlooked because people just aren't listening. Coming back to the sales point, potentially no sales, no follow-on, no repeat business. And the worst situation would be where the relationship turns really bad and you actually lose that business potentially to a competitor. And that you do not want to happen. So, Antonio, are there any comments in the chat to share?
Hi, Kate. Yeah, we have a few comments already appearing. The first one, I feel like I speak another language.
Yes.
Unclear requirement, dealing with bureaucracy, hidden agendas, the tussle between the sale and the delivery. As CIO, that is easy bit, people is my job. Scope changing, mad way through project. And we have a few more other comments. I'm just going to stop there.
And all of those things are really important. And I think, the bureaucracy one is one that I'll talk about in a little bit more detail as well. Getting good client relationships really helps you get through bureaucracy and things like that. So we'll come to all of those things. So we all know what it feels like when it goes wrong. Okay. So what are the key principles here? And you know what? There's lots of different models for key principles. And I tried to bring it down to a granular level about things that you can do that make a difference in your life to make this happen. Communication. Communicate. Never a bad idea. Over communication is always better than under communication. You've got to do it in the right way, though. You've got to tailor it to the individual and not to go mad on it. But actually, where people fall down is because they forget to communicate. On the positive attitude, I had a client today and he came on the video call and there was a sign behind him and it said, always answer the phone with enthusiasm. And you know what? Nobody likes the moaner in the office, right? So that whole point about always being enthusiastic about whatever it is you're asking to do and having that positive attitude at all times is going to go an awfully long way towards knowing the individual. So know a bit about the person, know what their role is, who they are, what their role is, what their background is, what their market environment is, potentially who their boss is, their team, know them. And also, if you get to know them at a personal level as well, appropriately, then it helps you to build that picture. Share your knowledge. I mean, that's what you're there to do as a consultant, as much at the end of the day. But be open with your knowledge. Tell people what you're about. Tell people what you're interested in and what you know. And it makes you feel like an open person. And coming back to that point, being open with your own opinion. If you don't like something, say so. You have to think of the way of saying something. But if you like something, say so. And actually, if you don't know, say you don't know. But again, this level of transparency helps people to build the trust. Exceeding expectations. Again, as consultants, we should all be trying to exceed expectations the whole time. The cynics amongst us would say set the expectation low and exceed it, but that doesn't work in consultancy. You should always be going the extra mile in order to impress the client and make them realise you are the sort of person that they want to do business with. I'm not going to talk about staying professional too much because I know Roberta's going to talk about it in terms of ethics and things going on, but keep that professional distance, keep that professional objectivity, keep your answers and your work based on evidence, and don't get too close into the client environment in case it starts to take away from the objectivity of what you want to do. And in a consultancy firm, you're not the only one doing this. Everybody should be playing their part. And again, there are new international guidelines on collaboration that organisations can sign up for to have collaborative working and good relationships across the supplier base, both with your organisation and with other suppliers. And it's really important that you you realise that you are only one cog in the whole wheel, and the whole firm needs to be pulling in the same direction on that one. Okay. I'll just go back over trust a little bit. 5 key ways that you can actually make sure that your client really trusts you. Being reliable. If you say Wednesday, mean it. And if it's not going to be Wednesday, tell them on Tuesday. Don't tell them on Wednesday morning. And just make sure that you do always deliver what you want to do. Hopefully these things are ingrained in you all anyway, but they're really important to do. Transparency, coming back to this openness of communication and being really open and honest in everything that you do, and demonstrating what you're doing and why you're doing it, not going behind their back to talk to other of their colleagues or their boss or anything like that. Being proactive. Once you have shown the client that you are able to identify pitfalls before you hit them and clear them out of the way, it'll be something that's good. Planning, being organised, being proactive. And availability. Ensuring the client can always contact you. And I've got a funny story here, because my client called me the other day that he was a subject of predictive text. And so I got this note that said, "Hi, it's Andrew from YMCA." And I thought, I don't know any Andrew from the YMCA, and I'm not altogether sure I want to be talking to them. But what had happened is that his predictive text had gone wrong and translated his company acronym into YMCA, but I didn't have his number written into my phone, so I didn't recognise it, so I ignored it. You know, all the ways you need to be available at all times. Integrity, hopefully again goes without saying. Always be authentic, always be yourself, always be true to yourself and your company brand as well. And honesty hopefully goes without saying as well. Okay. Consultancy engagements are in 3 main areas, and I'm doing this a great disservice by rattling through this at speed. But broadly, there is the sales process, there is the piece of work that you're actually doing, and then there's the ongoing piece between engagements that you need to think about. And client relationships are really, really important in all of these. So if we think about it in pre-sales, identifying the decision maker, building a relationship with the decision maker and any of the influences around the procurement process is going to put you in a good stead. If you can know that person, know what they want, know how they do their business, you will have an advantage. If you can identify a coach, somebody who's in the organization, might not be the decision maker, but can advise you around these various areas, then that's even better. And both of those things, having those relationships, will help you understand what you're bidding into, what's the environment, how's it going to work, and increase your ability to do a good job, to win the work and to do a good job. Once you're on the ground, I mean, developing the stakeholder network is really important, and there are hundreds of techniques around this. Splitting all the stakeholders up into those who can influence the project, who can impact the project, who can do that in a positive way, and who would do it in a negative way. Who are the detractors that do not want to have the project, do not want consultants in, do not want a particular IT system to be changed, or whatever it actually is. So building the relationships across that entire network, really important for you and your team. And then there's the point about your particular sponsor. Never lose that relationship with your sponsor. And coming back to the earlier point that Simon made, you know, how do you use that sponsor? Because they will help you, and they will use their influence to help you deal with the detractors and to give you access to resources during the project that you will need in order to get your project to. And doing those 2 things well, your sponsor and the stakeholder network will go a long way to ensure your recommendations are accepted. Going back to our lovely cartoon earlier, you know, why aren't they listening to me? This is why they are listening to you. And then afterwards and onwards from there, you know, you need to be building the relationship. You need to be thinking ahead to the ongoing pieces of work. It might be follow on from your current piece of work, or it might be something completely new in a different part of the organization. But you need to be building that relationship with the sponsors or the influencers for the subsequent places. And make sure you maintain relationships. Everybody on this call will know that the relationships you build in the early stages of your career actually last with you for life, and you never know where people are going to pop up again. So this whole general networking piece, making sure you do know people, that you can actually stay in touch on an ongoing basis. But, and again, answers on a postcard, please. How do we do this in lockdown? It's so easy, isn't it? When you can go out for coffee, you can drop by somebody's desk, you can have dinner with them, etc. So you can go to events and everything. How on earth do you do this in lockdown? So again, be interested in comments from the floor as to what sorts of things might hinder you or help you during lockdown. Are there any comments coming through, Antonio?
We have the first one, phone call.
Yeah.
From Ranga. We have a second one. I have been offering e-coffee with Daman. The next one is this Saturday. Social forums.
Yeah. Yeah.
Asking them how they are regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because the moan I get from my consultants is, this is so hard, I'm not in the office with people, I can't drop by the desk, I can't do things. And yes, you do actually have to work an awful lot harder at it, but it is really possible. And I was just talking with Roberta before we came on the call today, how much easier it is for me to keep in touch with colleagues across Europe, because we're all on the calls the whole time. I can never drop by their desk when they're in the Netherlands and I'm in the UK, but I can actually do it in lockdown. So there are ways that you can do it, and I think events like this are proving that there are forums that you can do it. And to exemplify that, I was going to talk about Deborah. Deborah is actually a fellow consultant, slightly more junior to myself, but she has formed this great relationship with me, almost like treating me as a client. And it's all been in lockdown. I think I've only met her in person actually once. But all those things I'm talking about, she exemplifies brilliantly. And I feel like I know Deborah, and I know exactly what Deborah talks about, and I know exactly what she stands for. And how has she done that? She's always telling me stuff. She communicates every week. There'll be an email or a phone call or a text or something about that. She's really positive. I know she's going to cheer me up every time I speak to her. She knows me. She knows what to bring me, because it's about public sector and upcoming legislation and what have you. She's always professional. I'm not going to comment on that particularly. She's always telling me something, and she's actually really exceeded my expectations in what she can actually do here. So it's a really interesting thing. I don't know this person, but I actually feel that I do. And I think putting yourself in the client's shoes sometimes and realizing how it feels to be them is a really important thing that you should all be doing. And coming back to that point, I think it's important to know that clients do have a role. I mean, government has just issued a whole suite of instructions for clients as to how to employ consultants and how to work with them. And the worst thing in the world is a client that doesn't know how to work with consultants, who's not available, who's not clear on the outcome and what have you. So the onus is on you to create that relationship, but it is also quite good to recognise what you're expecting from them and what you're not expecting. So I put a few points up there which are just saying about, encouraging the client to behave in this way, putting in place the forums so that they can actually be like this, going back to the scope of the project, making sure everybody understands the outcomes, keeping that communication channel open and creating the right working environment. So this whole idea of being a partner with your client is really true, but it does take the other part to do their piece. And if you haven't got a strong sponsor, it does make your life an awful lot more difficult. But generally speaking, partnership working is the way to go. And I'll just finish on this slide. Classic partnerships that I should think we all recognise. The Olympics, I particularly like that picture because it's Catherine Granger winning her gold medal at 2012 with her partner that I now can't remember. I think it was Jessica Norman, I think her name was. But in that partnership, they achieved something. And again, the Olympics at Atos, we have the International Olympics contract. We do the IT for every single games. We've done that now for years and years and years. It's a long-term partnership, and it really, really works. Ant and Dec, I mean, just legendary. They're never going to be apart. And then the last one, bringing it back to thing, is the relationship between Starbucks and Spotify, teaming up to actually create something that's quite unique for their customers. But again, the complementary skills and the shared rewards that you actually want in there. So I hope that's given you, that's a real canter through. I'm so sorry if I went over time. I didn't keep an eye very closely. Is any of that strike home to you? Any questions or any points or funny stories just to round it all off?
I rather liked the person who said that they had to take a phone call from a client. Terribly sorry.
Well, there you go. They're always available, you see. It's they're putting the clients first.
Antonio, what would you pick out from the... there have been quite a lot of comments and questions. Antonio, what would you pick out there?
Sure. We have a couple of regarding pre-communications and contractings once work has begun.
Mm.
And we have another one. So this one is from both Michaela and Philip. And we have another one from also Michaela that she's a little bit concerning about getting over emotionally invested in client business. Local government, NHS, charity sector, etc. So,
was that a question? Is that a question or?
So there are two. I think I will separate. I will split it in two. One, the last one that I mentioned is at some point we were saying that we have to be a professional, and Michele was pointed out that he gets concerned about getting over emotionally invested in the customer business,
so
especially.
Yeah, you know what?
Way. Hi.
Did you want to voice your question? Sorry. Oh no. So Michaela, I mean, getting emotionally invested in your clients' frontline issues is really endemic in public sector, and I'm sure it is in private sector as well, because it's very easy to get caught up in it. But particularly in the public sector, where people's lives are sometimes at risk and their livelihoods and all the rest of it, or their health, it's really, really key. And there has to be a point at which you cut off from that, and you have to realise that the job needs to get done, whatever the job might need to be. It's just managing your emotions for it. And really, if you've got a supportive client, they should recognise that as well. Your job is to achieve the outcome. Generally speaking, we wouldn't be signing up as consultancies to outcomes that would be emotional for people's lives. I can't think of where that would be, but we would be putting things in place to enable others to do that. So I worked on quite a few inquiries. So I've worked on the Hillsborough inquiry, which overturned the inquests into the disaster in 1989. And then the Gosport one, where they've discovered that over 450 people had been killed unnecessarily in a hospital down in Southampton by overdoses of morphine. And those were highly emotional, dealing with the families. On those teams, we had teams of people that only dealt with the families and handled all that emotion. And the rest of the project team were at various degrees removed from that. And we kept that separation very, very clear, because there were some pretty distressing moments in all of those areas, I can tell you. And the way I dealt with that, I can only take from the person, is as I thought, this is my specialty, this is what I'm here to do. And I was doing the program planning for a lot of it. And I was thinking, it is my job to make this as smooth and seamless as everybody else, and take the problems away from the people that are having to deal with the front line. So yeah, really, Michaela, it's a really good question, particularly for public sector as well, I think. Does that answer your question, Michaela? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And there was another question on recontracting when the contract had started.
So the question is from both. Well, I think it's the question from both, or a similar question. One if it's regarding recontracting once that the work has begun, and it's from Philip. And Michela was also asking about the boundaries in the recommunications.
Yeah, so I think the whole point about, you have a tender, you write a proposal, you win the proposal, and you turn up on day one and it looks slightly different to what you thought. And that happens all the time, right? So unless you absolutely do know the client, and perhaps it's a follow-on piece of work or something like that where you really do know what you're doing, it's really common to get in there and suddenly realize that the agenda is slightly different to what you thought it was going to be. And all you can do at that point is really work hard at getting to know the whys and wherefores of what people really want you to do and how you want to do it. If the outcome is significantly different to what's in the thing, you have to have that open and honest conversation and say, no, I'm really sorry, but that's not what we said we would do, or we don't have those skills, or it's going to cost more, or we're only going to be here a week, or you've got to sort this one for yourself, or whatever it might be. So it does come back to how you form that relationship, and mobilizing the project in the right way to make sure you have got all the facts and figures. If you get a bit further through and you realize things are going wrong, you need to go back to those base principles as well, and recontract on that basis. But it's an interesting point, because I think you should you recontract for the actual contract, what you're actually there on the hook to actually do, but you need to recontract with your client every time something changes at a relationship level, to sort of say, is this going well? These people didn't come to the workshop, or they were obstructive, or they wouldn't answer my questions, or they're not giving the data. How do we actually recontract this? Because that needs to be got over. So you have to deal with that on two ways, I think. Last question, how do you create a buffer from the client consequences of a client decision? They do not take your advice and fall foul of what you warned. Great question, Philip. This comes back to the central point of really understanding what it is that they want to do. And if you take their advice and they still don't take it anyway, maybe you haven't quite understood the question. Maybe you were there as a political team to give them the right answer and underpin it with a brand. If you've made your advice and they fall foul, I think I would maintain the client relationship anyway and be there to pick up the pieces. The worst thing you could do is be saying, well, I told you so. Or why would you do that? Actually, you should be able to have the conversation that says, well, we recommended this. They're saying, well, we don't want to do that. We want to do that. And you've made your opinion. So that's what you're telling them. And so that's fine. They go off and do it. Wish them well, help them mitigate the risks, those sorts of things. And don't judge. People will do what they will do. If you've given your professional opinion based on the data and the evidence that you've got, that's what it is. What you mustn't get that muddled up with is if you've made a recommendation that fits this scope, somebody taking that recommendation and applying it to a different scope. So that's, again, it's a scoping issue that you need to get right in your contracting thing. Yeah.
Well, sadly, I think we should probably move on, Kate. There's a really wonderful amount of interaction, lots of questions there, and I'm definitely going to take a look at that afterwards. But we need to allow some time for the other two.
Apologies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting.